Hey, what's up? This right here is an attempt at a kind of a life story, I think. Here's my dog. He wants me to walk him, which is going to happen eventually, but not before I film this video. I wanna go through kind of a life story of some kind of myself. And one of the triggering thoughts for this idea is I used to be a Christian, right? And there's kind of a cool practice that Christians have, which is to develop what they call their testimony, which is basically their life story framed in such a way to point towards God and why they believe in Jesus and how and why they came to Christianity. But there's something really powerful about that life story kind of exchange and exercise that's quite lovely. And whilst I might not have really specifically a God to point towards with my life story, my message, that there probably still is something that my life story points towards. There's some kind of value in it. Even if it's just for me as I record this, I fully expect to get some value out of this. But it does feel kind of more difficult to come up with a testimony as someone who isn't Christian compared to if I was a Christian, because if I was a Christian, I'd have all these guidelines and I would know what the important beats are, right, of my story in order to convey my belief in God and Jesus. But as someone who's left that behind, it's really a lot harder to filter what are the important beats of my life story. And I'm sensing that because of this, and maybe because I haven't thought about it enough, the undertaking of a life story for me will be a very rambly one, circular, very fluffy, for lack of better vocabulary to describe that. But when I think of it, I think that my sharing of a life story would probably center around a message of love. It would probably be a message to say, I love you. I remember one time I was thinking, this was a while ago, about if I were to write a suicide note, what would I put in it? And I used to have these fantasies about achieving certain things in life. I still have fantasies, probably more different ones, but more of the same probably. But I had these fantasies of becoming a great tennis player or something like that. And I remember thinking, what would I want to say in that speech if I, won a big tournament? What would I want to say? And really, basically, what I would want to say was, I love you. Can you see that I love you? Like, finally I've earned a podium for my message of love, and it can be validated, maybe. I think, in truth, love itself doesn't need to be validated. It's just there. But there is a kind of a pain of having love and having it not be seen, or not having the ability to express it. But I guess it seemed like what I was realizing in that I can't remember how the speech crossed over with the suicide note. There was some evening where both of those themes came up in my writing and thinking. And it seemed that really I wanted to express I love you. And really, I think I also wrote a pretend suicide note that night as well, as what would I write if I was going to write a suicide note. And it basically was just, look, I love you. And the idea also came up of maybe our lives are kind of, suicide notes of one kind or another. The lives that we live, that famous line, my life is my message.